As you sail into the unknown, know that Lumiere stands with you. When you battle the Paintress, know that Lumiere fights with you. Let the stones of her monolith crumble. Let her body lie at the end of the world. Unable to paint another death, let the stars no longer be hidden by her oppressive silhouette. Let the world once again watch the sun rise without the shadow of her cursed figure. May the wind of renewal take you to the ends of the earth. Tomorrow comes. Thanks to you. Expedition 33.
Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to another sketch and review, where I draw something from whatever it is I'm reviewing. And this time, I'm going to be reviewing Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I'm just going to get this out of the way. This game is my personal game of the year. Last year, it was Stellar Blade. This year, it's Expedition 33. Beware, going forward, there will be spoilers. Now, of everything I played in 2025, from Doom the Dark Ages, Wu-Chang Fallen Feathers, Borderlands 4, which I only got to play co-op with my wife. I don't really play the Borderlands games on my own. Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill F, Metal Gear Solid Delta. Clair Obscur was the best overall experience that I had. Everything from the character and world design to the music, writing, and dialogue was some of the best I'd experienced in a very long time. Now, I'm a huge horror and action game fan, so I was expecting to hold Doom the Dark Ages as the best of 2025, since that's more my cup of tea. But Clair Obscur was something special. Before I get into it, let me talk a bit about the art that I'm doing. There were lots of ideas I wanted to draw while reviewing this, from a full group shot of the main cast to some random Nevrons, which are the game's main enemies. But I really just wanted to do a simple digital painting of the Paintress. Sometimes these drawings start taking a bit too long as I have other projects, and a simple pic of the Paintress, the main antagonist of the game, made sense. Well, the main antagonist to a point. Like I said, there's going to be spoilers. For those that don't know, which isn't many people by now, I believe, Clair Obscur is a turn-based RPG by new developer Sandfall Interactive. Without going too much into it, this game has been in production for a while and started with a team of around 30 people. I think it was around 30 people. Most of which I believe are ex-Ubisoft employees. Obviously, the team expanded and, by its release earlier this year, had grown into a fully staffed studio. To say Expedition 33 is an achievement is an understatement. When I first heard about it, it looked interesting enough, and I was surprised someone in this day and age was making a new IP as a turn-based RPG. For those that don't know, turn-based RPGs see players, well, take turns in combat, which usually requires careful builds and proper strategy. Series like Final Fantasy start off turn-based, then slowly became more action-oriented because that's what those devs thought Western audiences wanted. Here in the West, we love our non-stop shoot-'em-up hack-and-slash action, while in the East, turn-based games are still popular. So it was strange seeing a non-Eastern game dev make something close to what Final Fantasy used to be. And in the end, their decision paid off. I ended up having to backorder my physical copy since it sold out. I haven't had that issue with any other game that I can think of recently. Now, there is a caveat though when it comes to turn-based games being popular, and that would be Baldur's Gate 3. The difference in that game's success is that it was anticipated for years, had the Dungeons and Dragons branding, and had a lengthy early access period. Also, CRPGs, or computer RPGs, like Baldur's Gate or Pillars of Eternity, which I've also played, have a built-in devout fan base on PC that have followed those series for years. I'm sure someone will want to bring up a Baldur's Gate 3 comparison, which is fair to an extent, but it also had a very different set of circumstances for its success. So, what makes this game so special? I'll start with the easiest thing to talk about, the gameplay. For those unfamiliar with turn-based RPGs, gameplay consists of your character or party taking turns against an enemy or a group of enemies. Now, that can sound boring and time-consuming if you're used to more action-oriented games, but turn-based games have their value in strategy and character builds. If you're fighting an ice enemy, use fire. If you're fighting a water enemy, use ice. And if you're fighting an earth enemy, also use fire. Now, come to think of it, basically most RPGs rely on fire or ice for some reason. I mean, there's also the off-brand spells like darkness, gravity, or poison, but let's face it, you don't really see a lot of that stuff unless you're playing a Souls game. No, most turn-based games see you choosing a regular attack or magic, or healing, then waiting for the enemy to do something. When it's the enemy's turn, you just gotta take the hit. This is where Clair Obscur is different. Here you have the option to eventually attack more than once per turn, and from the start you can parry, dodge, and jump over enemy attacks. If you get good enough, you could potentially win entire battles without ever getting hit. They managed to mix in a real-time strategy system with turn-based, and it's some of the funnest RPG combat I've ever played. No more just standing around waiting to soak up damage. And really, that's where the fighting system shines. Timing your parries is almost more crucial than doing a basic attack, since your counterattacks have the potential to one-shot certain enemies. By adding in real-time dodging and parrying, it changes how you approach battles, and no two fights ever feel the same. To an extent, once you get leveled high enough and overpowered, things can get grindy and repetitive, but that's kind of the nature of RPGs. Overall, and in general, every battle does feel different and unique. And like any good RPG, there's a fair share of optional mega bosses that require some pretty specific builds and damn near robotically perfect timing to beat. The enemy design is also some of the most unique I've seen, playing off of 1920s style Art Deco mixed with inanimate objects kind of come to life. Most of which revolves around painting and art tools as per the game's theme. The next thing I want to talk about is something that I actually normally gloss over: the story. I've often said that I do not care about stories in video games because honestly, I think most video game stories suck, especially these days. The writing is usually terrible, characters are more often than not just bad self-inserts, or the narrative is more focused on modernized political pandering and less on just giving us something to escape into after having to deal with real-life bullshit. I don't play video games to be reminded of how shitty the real world is. I don't need to be represented in a game. I don't need to see other people's representation. I don't want to play as me. I want to play as something more than me, something original. The only modern games I can think of that have great stories are both Plague Tale games. I would say Soul Reaver, the Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain games, but that's a few generations ago. Clair Obscur was the first game since the original Final Fantasy VII where I actually felt a real connection to the characters, and in an ironic twist, spoiler alert, they're not even real. Not just in a video game sense, but within the narrative of the game itself. And that narrative is on the same level as the aforementioned Legacy of Kain series, which I still think is a fucking masterpiece. Now, here's some spoilers ahead. I'm not going to go over the entire plot, but it goes something like this. And if you don't want to know, click away, because I am going to give a general idea of how the plot goes. So in this game, every year there's this thing called the gommage, where everyone at a certain age that's painted on a giant monolith out in the distance dies. You play as part of Expedition 33, the current year and age that people start disintegrating into nothing. Along the way, you find out that everything that exists in this world isn't real. You and everyone in it lives in sort of a pocket universe created by painters, and the painting the game takes place in belonged to a boy that died in a fire in this game's real world. The reason everyone keeps dying is because there's a family in turmoil in this game's real world, and the mother, Aileen, entered her son's painting to be close to him since he died. The father, Renoir, I think I said that right, is trying to pull his wife out, and in doing so has been destroying all of the creations each year to help set her free. Talk about deep. It's got multiple layers in that it's very meta by having the main characters Maëlle, whose real name is Alicia, and Verso, who is a recreation of her brother, well, the boy that died in the fire, get close to creations that aren't real. That's right, aside from Maëlle, no one in your party exists in the game's real world. She gets attached to them the same way we get attached to her. It actually reminded me a lot of Tron, only instead of living code, it's living art. Well, the original Tron. I haven't seen the new Tron, and I don't really plan to. It looks terrible. I digress. This game kind of begs the question, is something real because it exists, or because we believe it exists? I actually like the deep philosophical undertones the game presents because, let's face it, almost everything these days is a basic bullshit revenge plot, and it's kind of tiresome. This game's story, writing, plot, everything was so very, very refreshing. The second thing about the story that hit a personal note with me was the emphasis on art. This might be a little ranty, but bear with me. In this modern age of technology, with people, especially non-artists, pretending to be artists in their gross excuse to claim generative AI as a tool, as if it somehow gives them artistic talent, Expedition 33 emphasizes the importance of experience, trauma, pain, emotion as a key part of creating art. See, art isn't just a product. No matter what these modern plagiarists say, it's a journey. It's 100 failed drawings just to get one right. It's countless praise for work that you can't stand while being ignored for something that you're proud of. The game actually acknowledges that. No fucking AI prompter will ever know what that feels like, whether you're drawing on pencil, charcoal, acrylic, oil, or even using a pen on a digital tablet, which, hey, you still need to use the same talent as if you're drawing on paper to draw on digital tablet. This game resonates with a surprising level of artistic integrity. And by the way, charcoal, acrylic, oil, I actually do work in all those mediums, but it's really hard to film, so digital tablet, I can just screen record. However, I did see one Reddit post that the devs may or may not have used an AI image placeholder in one spot in the game, but I haven't been able to confirm if that's true. Maybe it was in a pre-patch build that someone got lazy and used, or maybe it's an internet hoax. I honestly don't know. I am glad, though, that the devs have been open with their art process since it was announced years ago before AI was a thing. And as of right now, with the current build and patches, apparently there is no AI in the game at all. So that is something I do appreciate. Now, for the music. My God, the music. Now, I am a die-hard metalhead, and I say metalhead, I mean fucking metal. Belphegor, Behemoth, Slayer, Old White Zombie, Aborted, Flesh God Apocalypse. recently got into Orbit Culture and, oh god, what's the other band I just saw that I absolutely fucking adore? Shadow of Intent, that's right. Yeah, my god, those guys are fucking awesome. Shadow of Intent. If you haven't heard them or Orbit Culture, check out those two bands. But even as a blood and bone metalhead, Clair Obscur has some of the most beautiful music I have ever heard. You don't need to be into any specific genre to appreciate it. There were times when I was at camp in the game and I just listened to the music on the in-game speaker, especially the title track, I believe, is Lumiere. So, going back to gameplay, world traversal is done in kind of a typical RPG fashion. You have your in-level areas that are like mini-mazes with different paths to explore, and when you're not in any of those main areas, there's a full-on overworld map. Some places have a high danger level, but you can always come back later. There's dozens of places to explore, and each area feels completely unique. Now, there is some repetition when it comes to traversal that some people may not like, but I didn't have an issue. If you've played a JRPG like Dragon Quest or Legend of Dragoon, which unfortunately never got a sequel, that was an awesome PS1 RPG, then you kind of know what to expect. If not, just know it can be easy to get lost, but exploration is half the fun. Lastly, I want to talk about some of the finer game mechanics. At pretty much any point in the game, you can go to camp. This is where you can level up weapons, check out recordings you found, have conversations with other characters, and build their relationships. Building relationships is important because later in the game, it also unlocks these cool super moves called gradients that build up during battles. Now, there are dialogue trees and a few different endings, but most of the story is set on a linear path. Don't let that deter you though. It's still very well worth it to go through and hear what everyone has to say. The story, the writing is really just that good, and I almost never praise story or writing in video games, so if I'm praising it, it's got to be something special. With the year coming to a close and Battlefield 6 having just released, or as I'm currently calling it, Battlefield 6 Modern Warfare 3 Part 2. The game's awesome, by the way. And Ninja Gaiden 4 right around the corner. Well, I think it's out by the time I finish this review. I still have to give my game of the year to Expedition 33. Everything it just did so right. It was also surprisingly polished for a AA game. I never had any stutters or freezes on the PS5, and it ran perfectly smooth. I mean, almost every AAA major release can't even get that right. If you're looking for a great, fun, engaging adventure that's easy to pick up but hard to put down, with one of the few decently written stories in gaming, you need to play Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And no, I'm not shilling for the devs, although I wish I was, because it'd be nice to get paid for this review. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have New Game Plus on Stellar Blade to finish, and Battlefield 6 is going to be calling my name in a minute. If you like what I do, please hit that like and subscribe. It really helps a lot. And I will see you on the next one.